Time for lunch, and we're on Job 38. Then Jehovah answered Iob out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this who darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Now gird up your loins like a man, and I ask you, and you answer me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Declare if you have understanding. Who set its measurement, if you know, or who stretched the line upon it? Upon what were its foundations sunk, or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of Elohim shouted for joy? Or who enclosed the sea with doors, when it burst forth and came from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment, and thick darkness its swaddling band, and assigned for it my law, and set bars and doors, and said, This far you have come, but no farther, and here your proud waves stop. Have you ever commanded the morning, and caused the dawn to know its place, to take hold of the ends of the earth, and the wrong be shaken out of it? It is changed like clay under a seal, and they stand out like a garment. And their light is withheld from the wrong, and the arm lifted up is broken. Have you come to the sources of the sea, or have you walked about in the recesses of the deep? Were the gates of death revealed to you, or have you seen the gates of the shadow of death? Have you understood the breadth of the earth? Declare if you know it all. Where is the way to the dwelling of light? In darkness, where is its place? That you should take it to its boundary, and know the paths to its home. Do you know? For you would have been born then, and the number of your days been many. Have you entered into the storehouse of snow, or have you seen the storehouses of hail, which I have kept for the time of distress, for the day of fighting and battle? Where is the way that light is divided, or the east wind scattered over the earth? Who has cleft a channel for the overflowing water, or a way for the thunder claps? To make rain fall on land where no one is, a wilderness in which there is no man, to satisfy the wild and waste places, and to make the seeds of grass to sprout. Does the rain have a father, or who has brought forth the drops of dew? From whose belly comes the ice, and who gave birth to the frost of the heavens? The water hardened like stone, and the surface of the deep is frozen. Do you bind the bands of Kimmah, or loosen the cords of Casil? Do you bring out the constellations in its season, or do you lead the bear with its sons? Do you know the law of the heavens, or do you set their rule over the earth? Do you lift up your voice to the clouds, so that floods of water cover you? Do you send out lightnings, and they go and say to you, Where we are, or here we are? Who has put wisdom in the inward parts, or who has given understanding to the heart? Who is wisdom to count the clouds, or to tip over the bottles of the heavens? When the dust hardens, it clumps, and the clods cling together. Do you hunt the prey for the lion, or satisfy the appetite of the young lions? When they crouch in dens, sit in the cover of their hiding place. Who provides food for the raven, when its young one cries to El, and wander about without food? Do you know the time when the wild mountain goat bear young, or do you observe when the deer gives birth? Do you number the months they complete, or do you know the time when they bear young? They bow down, they bring forth their young, their labor pains are ended, their young ones are thriving, they grow up in the field, they shall leave and not return to them. Who set the wild donkey free? who loosed the bonds of the wild donkey, whose home I have made the desert, and the salt land his dwelling. He laughs at the commotion of the city. He does not hear the shouts of the driver. The range of the mountains is his pasture, and he searches for all that is green. Would the wild ox be pleased to serve you, or spend the night by your feeding trough? If you bind the wild ox in the furrows with ropes, would he plow the valley behind you? Would you rely on great strength, or would you leave your labor to him? Would you trust him to bring home your grain and gather it to your threshing floor? The wings of the ostrich flap joyously, but they are not the pinions and plumage of a stork. She leaves her eggs on the ground and warms them in the dust, and she forgets that a foot might crush them, or a wild beast tread on them. She treats her young harshly, as if not hers. Her toil is in vain without fear, because Eloah has made her forget wisdom, and did not endow her with understanding. When she lifts herself on high, she laughs at the horse and its rider. Have you given the horse strength? Have you covered his neck with a mane? Would you make him leap like a locust? His splendid snorting is frightening. He paws in the valley and rejoices in strength. He gallops into the clash of arms. He laughs at fear and is not frightened. Nor does he turn back from the sword. The quiver rattles against him, the glittering spear and lance. He eats up the ground with fierceness and rage, and he does not stand still because of the voice of a shofar. At the blast of the shofar he says, "Aha!" and from afar he smells the battle, the thunder of commanders and shouting. Does the hawk fly by your wisdom, spreading its wings toward the south? Does the eagle mount up at your mouth and make its nest on high? It dwells on the rock and lodges on the crag of the rock and the stronghold. From there it searches out the prey. Its eyes see it from afar, and its young ones suck up blood. And where the slain are, there it is. And Jehovah answered Iob and said, should a reprover contend with the Almighty? Let him who reproves Eloah answer it. And Iob answered Jehovah and said, see, I am insignificant. What would I answer you? I lay my hand over my mouth. Once I have spoken, but I have no answer, and twice, but I say no more. Then Jehovah answered Iob out of the whirlwind and said, now gird up your loins like a man. I ask you, and you answer me. Would you also set aside my judgment? Would you pronounce me wrong, and you declare righteousness? Or do you have an arm like El? Or do you thunder with a voice like his? Deck yourself, please, with excellency and grandeur, and put on esteem and splendor. Scatter abroad the rage of your wrath, and look on everyone who is proud and bring him low. Look on everyone who is proud, humble him, and tread down the wrongdoers in their place. Hide them in the dust together, bind their faces in obscurity. Then even I would confess to you that your own right hand does save you. See now, Behemoth, which I made along with you, he eats grass like an ox. See now, his strength is in his loins, and his power is in his stomach muscles. He bends his tail like a cedar, and sinews of his thighs are knit together. His bones are like tubes of bronze, his ribs like bars of iron. He is the beginning of the ways of El. His maker brings near his sword. For the mountains yield food for him, and all the beasts of the field play there. He lies under the slender trees, under cover of reed and swamp. The slender trees cover him with their shade. The willows by the stream surround him. See if a river rages. He is not alarmed. He feels safe, even if the Yarden gushes into his mouth. Before his eyes shall he be caught with snares, or his nose pierced? Would you draw out Leviathan with a hook, or snare his tongue with a line which you lower? Would you put a cord through his nose, or pierce his jaw with a hook? Would he keep on pleading with you? Would he speak softly to you? Would he make a covenant with you to be taken as a servant forever? Would you play with him as with a bird, or leash him for your young girls? Would trading partners bargain over him? Would they divide him among the merchants? Fill his skin with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears. Put your hand on him. Think of the struggle. Do not do it again. See, any expectation of him is disappointed. He is laid low, even at the sight of him. No one is foolhardily to wake him up. Then who is able to stand against me? Who has given to me first, that I should repay him under all the heavens that is mine? I would not keep silent concerning his limbs, or his mighty power, or his fair frame. Who shall take off the surface of his skin? Who approaches him with a double bridle? Who shall open the doors of his face, with his frightening teeth all around? Rows of scales are his pride, closed up, a binding seal. One of the other they fit closely, not even a breath enters between them. They are joined one to another, they stick together and are not separated. His sneezing flashes forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go fire bands, sparks of fire shoot out. Out of his nostrils comes smoke, like a boiling pot or kettle. His breath sets coals on fire, and a flame goes out of his mouth. Strength dwells in his neck, and fear leaps before him. The folds of his flesh cleave together. They are firm on him, immovable. His heart is as hard as stone, even as hard as the lower millstone. When he raises himself up, the mighty are afraid. Because of his crashing, they are bewildered. No sword that reaches him does prevail, neither spear, dart, or lance. He reckons iron as straw, bronze as rotten wood. The arrow does not make him flee, sling stones because like stubble to him. Clubs are reckoned as straw. He laughs at a rattle of a lance. His undersides are like sharp potsherds. He sprawls on the mud like a threshing sledge. He makes the deep boil like a pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. He leaves a shining bath behind him. One would think the deep to be gray-haired. No one on earth is like him, one made without fear. He sees all that is haughty. He is sovereign over all the sons of pride. And Iob answered Jehovah and said, You know that you are able to do all, and that no purpose is withheld from you. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore I declared, but I did not understand, matters too marvelous for me, which I did not know. Listen, please, and let me speak. I ask you, then would you make it known to me? I have heard of you by hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I despise myself, and repent in dust and ashes. It came to be, after Jehovah had spoken these words to Iob, that Iob said to Eliphaz and to Temanite, My wrath has burned against you and your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, and did my servant Iob, as did my servant Iob. And now take 7 bulls and 7 rams, and go to my servant Iob, and offer up ascending offerings for yourselves. And let my servant Iob pray for you, for I accept him, lest I punish you, because you have not spoken of me what is right, as did my servant Iob. So Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, Zophar the Naamathite, went and did as Jehovah commanded them, and Jehovah accepted the face of Iob. And Jehovah turned the captivity of Iob when he prayed for his friends, and Jehovah gave Iob twice as much as he had before. And all his brothers and all his sisters and all those who had been his friends before came to him and ate food with him in his house. And they sympathized with him and comforted him for all the evil that Jehovah had brought upon him. And they each gave him a kezitah, and each one a ring of gold. And Jehovah blessed the latter days of Iob more than his beginning, for he had 14,000 sheep, and 6,000 camels, and 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. And he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he called the name of the first Yemamah, and the name of the second Ketziah, and the name of the third Keren Hapuk. And in all the land where he found no woman, and in all the land were found no women so beautiful as the daughters of Iob. And their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. And after this Iob lived 140 years, and saw his children and grandchildren for 4 generations. And Iob died old and satisfied with days.